Who's he? Him? Will saw fire flick up through Mr. Dark's smoke-clouded eyes, saw him just as quickly snuff it out. The new act, Mr. Electrico. No, look at the old man, look, Will yelled. The police turned to appraise his demon cry. Don't you see? Said Will. He's dead. Only thing holds him up is the straps. The interns gazed up at the great flake of winter flung into and held by the black chair. Oh gosh, thought Will. We thought it would all be simple. The old man, Mr. Cougar, dying so we could bring doctors to save him, so he forgives us. Maybe the carnival doesn't hurt us, lets us go. But now this, what's next? He's dead. It's too late. Everyone hates us. And Will stood among the others, feeling the cold air waft down for the unearthed mummy. From the cold mouth and cold eyes locked up in frozen eyelids. Inside the frozen nostrils not a white hair stirred. Mr. Cougar's ribs under his collapsed shirt were stone rigid, and his teeth under his clay lips were dry ice cold. Put him out at noon and fog would steam off him. The interns gazed at each other. They nodded. The policeman at this took one step forward. Gentlemen, Mr. Dark scuttled a tarantula hand up an electric brass switchboard. 100,000 volts will now burn Mr. Electrico's body. No, don't let him, Will cried. The policeman took another step. The interns opened their mouths to speak. Mr. Dark flicked a switch, demanding a glance at Jim. Jim cried, No, it's all right. Jim. Will, yes, it's okay. Stand back. The spider clutched the switch handle. This man is in a trance. As part of our new act, I have hypnotized him. He could suffer injury if you shocked him from his spell. The interns shut their mouths. The police stopped moving. 100,000 volts, yet he will come forth alive, whole and sound in body. No, the policeman grabbed Will. The illustrated man and all the men and beasts asprawl in frenzies on him now snatched and banged the switch. The tent lights snuffed out. The policemen, interns, boys jumped up in their flashing cobbles and boils. But now in the swift midnight shuddering, the electric chair was a hearth, and on it the old man blazed like a blue autumn tree. The police flinched back. The interns leaned ahead, as did the freaks, blue fire in their eyes. The illustrated man, hand glued to the switch, looked upon the old man. The old man was flint rock dead, yes, but the electricity alive sheathed over him. It swarmed on his cold shell ears. It flickered in as deep as abandoned stone well nostrils. It crept blue eels of power on his praying mantis fingers and grasshopper knees. The illustrated man's lips thrust wide. Perhaps he yelled, but no one heard against the immense fry, blast, and slam and sizzle of power which prowled in, around, over, under, about a man imprisoning chair. Come alive, cried the hum. Come alive, cried the storming color and light. Come alive, yelled Mr. Dark's mouth, which no one heard but Jim, reading lips, read thunderous loud in his mind, and Will the same. Come alive, willing the old man to live, start up, tick, hum, work, juice, summon, spit, ungum, spirit, milt, wax, soul. He's dead, but no one heard Will either, no matter how he pushed against the lightning clamor. Alive, Mr. Dark's lips licked and savored. Alive, come alive. He ratcheted the switch to the last notch. Live, live, somewhere dynamos protested, skrilled, moaned a bestial energy. The light turned bottle green. Dead, dead, thought Will, but live, live, cried machines, cried flame and fire, cried mouths of crowds of livid beasts on illustrated flesh. So the old man's hair stood up in prickling fumes. Sparks bled from his fingernails, dripped seething spatters on pine planks. Green simmerings wove shuttles through dead eyelids. The illustrated man bent violently above the old, dead thing. His prides of beasts drowned deep in sweat. His right hand thrust in hammering demand upon the air. Live, live! And the old man came alive. Will yelled himself hoarse, and no one heard. For now, very slowly, as if roused by thunder, as if the electric fire were new dawn, one dead eyelid peeled itself slowly open. The freaks gaped. A long way off in the storm, Jim was yelling too, for Will had his elbow tight and felt the yell pouring out through the bones. As the old man's lips fell apart and frightful sizzles zigzagged between lips and threaded teeth, the illustrated man cut the power to a whine. Then turning, he fell to his knees and put out his hand. Away off up there on the platform, there was the faintest stir as if autumn leaf beneath the old man's shirt. The freaks exhaled. The old man sighed. Yes, Will thought, they're breathing for him, helping him, making him to live. Inhale, exhale, yet it looked like an act. What could he say or do? Lungs so, someone whispered. The dust witch, back in her glass box? Inhale, the freaks breathed. Exhale, the shoulders slumped. The old man's lips trembled. Heart beat. 1, 2, so. The witch again? Will feared to look. A vein tickled a small watch in the old man's throat. Very slowly, now that right eye of the old man opened full wide, fixed, stared like a broken camera. It was looking through a hole in space with no bottom forever. He grew warmer. The boys below grew colder. Nellie, old and terribly wise with nightmare eye, was so wide and so deep and so alive all to itself in that smashed porcelain face that there at the bottom of the eye somewhere the evil nephew peered along and out at the freaks, interns, police, and Will. Will saw himself, saw Jim, two little pictures posed in reflection on that single eye. If the old man blinked, the two images would be crushed by his lid. The illustrated man on his knees turned at last and gentled with all with a smile. Gentlemen, boys, here indeed is the man who lives with lightning. The second policeman laughed. This motion shook his hand off his holster. Will shuffled to the right. The old spittle-eyed followed, sucking at him with his emptiness. Will squirmed left, as did the flame that was the old man's gaze, while his chill lips peeled wide to shape, reshape, and echoed gasp. A flutter from deep below the old man bounced, his voice ricocheting off the dank stone walls of his body until it fell out of his mouth. Welcome. The word fell back in. Welcome. The policemen nudged each other with identical smiles. No, cried Will suddenly. That's no act. He was dead. He'll die again if you cut the power. Will slapped his own hand to his mouth. Oh, Lord, he thought, what am I doing? I want him alive, so he'll forgive us. Let us be, but oh, Lord, even more I want him dead. I want them all dead. They scare me so much. I got hairballs big as cats in my stomach. I'm sorry, he whispered. Don't be, cried Mr. Dark. The freaks made a commotion of blinks and glares. What next for the statue in this cold, sizzling chair? The old man's one eye gummed itself. The mouth collapsed, a bubble of yellow mud in its sulphur bath. The illustrated man banged the switch a notch, grinning wildly at no one. He thrust a steel sword in the old man's empty glove-like hand. A drench of electricity prickled from the Sarah music box tines of the ancient stubbled cheeks. That deep eyes showed swift as a bullet hole. Hungry for Will, it found and ate his image. The lips steamed. I saw the boys sneak into the tent. The desiccated bellows refilled, then pin-punctured the swamp air out in faint wills. We rehearsing so, I thought, play this trick, pretend to be dead. Again the pause to drink oxygen like ale, electricity like wine. Let myself fall like I was dying. The boys, screaming, ran. The old man husked out syllable on syllable. Ha, pause, ha, pause, ha. Electricity hem-stitched the whistling lips. The illustrated man coughed gently. This act tires, Mr. Electrico. Oh, sure, one of the policemen started. Sorry, he touched his cap. Fine show, fine, said one of the interns. Will glanced swiftly to see the intern's mouth, what it looked like saying this, but Jim stood in the way. Boys, a dozen free passes. Mr. Dark held them out. Here. Jim and Will didn't move. Well, said one policeman. Sheepishly, Will reached up for the flame-colored tickets, but stopped as Mr. Dark said, Your names? The officers winked at each other. Tell him, boys. Silence. The freaks watched. Simon, said Jim. Simon Smith. Mr. Dark's hand holding the tickets constricted. Oliver, said Will. Oliver Brown. The illustrated man sucked in a mighty breath. The freaks inhaled. The vast in-gasped sigh might have seemed to stir Mr. Electrico. His sword twitched. Its tip leaped to spark string Will's shoulder, then sizzled over in blue-green explosions at Jim. Lightning shot Jim's shoulder. The policeman laughed. The old man's one eye blazed. I dub thee donkeys and fools. I dub thee Mr. Sickly and Mr. Pale. Mr. Electrico finished. The sword tapped them. A short, sad life for you both. Then his mouth slit shut, his raw eye glued over. Containing his cellar breath, he let the simple sparks swarm his blood like dark champagne. The tickets, murmured Mr. Dark. Free rides, free rides. Come any time, come back, come back. Jim grabbed, Will grabbed the tickets. They jumped, they bolted from the tent. The police, smiling and waving all around, followed at their leisure. The interns, not smiling like ghosts in their white suits, came after. They found the boys huddled in the back of the police car. They looked as though they wanted to go home. 2. Pursuits. 25. She could feel the mirrors waiting for her in each room, much the same as you felt without opening your eyes that the first snow of winter had just fallen outside your window. Miss Foley had first noticed some years ago that her house was crowded with bright shadows of herself. Best then to ignore the cold sheets of December ice in the hall above the bureaus in the bath. Best skate the thin ice lightly, pause the weight of your attention might crack the shell, plunge through the crust, you might drown in depths so cold, so remote, that all the past lay carved in tombstone marbles there. Ice water would syringe your veins, transfixed at the mirror still. You would stand forever, unable to lift your gaze from the proofs of time. Yet tonight, with the echo of the running feet of 3 boys dying away, she kept feeling snow fall on the mirrors of her house. She wanted to thrust through the frames to test their weather. She was afraid that doing this might cause all the mirrors to somehow assemble in blindfold multiplications of self, an army of women marching away to become girls and girls marching to become infinitely small children. So many people crammed in one house would provoke suffocation. So what must she do about mirrors? Will Holloway, Jim Nightshade, and the nephew? Strange. Why not say my nephew? Because, she thought, for the first when he came in the door, he didn't belong. His proof was not proof. She kept waiting for what? Tonight, the carnival. Music, the nephew said. That must be heard. Rides that must be ridden. Stay away from the maze where the winter slept. Swim around with the carousel, where summer, sweet as clover, honeygrass, and wild mint kept its lively time. She looked out at the night lawn from which she had not yet retrieved the scattered jewels. Somehow she guessed this was a way the nephew had of getting rid of the 2 boys who might stop her using this ticket she took from the mantel. Carousel, admit 1. She had waited for the nephew to come back. With time passing, she must act on her own. Something must be done, not to hurt, no, but to slow down the interference from such as Jim and Will. No one must stand between her and nephew, her and the carousel, her and lovely gliding right around summer. The nephew had said as much, but saying nothing by just holding her hands and breathing baked apple pie scent from his small, pink mouth upon her face. She lifted the telephone. Across town she saw the light in the stone library building, and as all the town had seen it over the years, she dialed. A quiet voice answered. She said, "Library, Mr. Holloway? This is Miss Foley, Will's teacher. In 10 minutes, please leave me in the police station. Mr. Holloway?" A pause. "Are you still there?" 26. "I'd have sworn," said one intern. "When we first got there, that old man was dead." The ambulance and the police car had pulled up at the same moment as the crossroads, going back into town. One of the interns had called over. Now one of the policemen called back, "You're joking." The interns sat at the ambulance. They shrugged. "Yeah, sure, joking." They drove on ahead, their faces as quiet and white as their uniforms. The police followed, with Jim and Will huddled in the back, trying to say more, but the police started talking and laughing, retelling everything that happened to one another, so Will and Jim wound up lying, giving wrong names again, saying they lived around the corner from the police station. They let the police drop them at 2 dark houses near the station, and they ran up on those porches and grabbed the doorknobs and waited for the prowl car to swing off around the corner into the station. And then they came down and followed and stood looking at the yellow lights of the station, all sun-colored at midnight, and Will glanced over and saw the whole evening come and go in Jim's face, and Jim watching the police station windows as if at any moment darkness might fill every room and put the lights out forever. On my way back into town, thought Will, I threw away my tickets, but look, Jim still has his in his hand. Will trembled. What did Jim think, want, plan, now that dead men lived and only lived through fire of white-hot electric chair machines? Did he still very much love carnivals? Will searched. Faint echoes, yes, they came. They went in Jim's eyes, for Jim, after all, was Jim, even standing here with the calm light of justice falling on his cheekbones. The chief of police, Will said. He'd listen to us. Yeah, said Jim. He'd wait just long enough to send for the butterfly net. Hell, William, hell, even I don't believe what's happened the last 24 hours, but we gotta find someone higher up. Keep trying, now we know what the score is. Okay, what's the score? What's the carnival done is so bad? Scared a woman with a mirror maze? So she scared herself, the police would say. Burgled a house? Okay, where's the burglar? Hiding inside an old man's skin? Who'd believe that? Who'd believe an old man was ever a boy 12? And what else is the score? Did a lightning rod salesman disappear? Sure, and left this bag. But he could have left town, the dwarf in the sideshow. I saw him, you saw him, looks kind of like the lightning rod man. Sure, but again, can you prove he was ever this big? No, just like you can't prove Cougar was ever small. So that leaves us right here, Will, on the sidewalk. No proof except what we saw, and just us kids. The carnival's word against ours. And the police had a fine time anyway there. Oh gosh, it's a mess. If only there was still some way to apologize to Mr. Cougar. Apologize, Will yelled. To a man-eating crocodile? Jehoshaphat, you still don't see we can't do business with those Ulmers and Goffs. Ulmers? Goffs? Jim gazed upon him thoughtfully, for that was how the boys talked of the creatures who dragged and swayed and slumped through their dreams. In the bad dreams of William, the Ulmers moaned and gibbered and had no faces. In the equally bad dreams of Jim, the Goffs, his peculiar name for them, grew like the monster meringue-pate mushrooms. which fed on rats, which fed on spiders, which fed, in turn, because they were large enough, on cats. Ulmers and Goffs, said Will. You need a 10-ton safe to fall on you? Look what happened to 2 folks already. Mr. Electrico and that terrible crazy dwarf. All kinds of things can go wrong with people on that darned machine. We know, we've seen it. Maybe they squashed the lightning rod man down that way on purpose, or maybe something went wrong. Fact is, he wound up in a wine press anyway, got run over by a steamroller carousel, and so crazy now he doesn't even know us. Ain't that enough to scare out of you, Jim? Why, maybe even Mr. Crossetti. Mr. Crossetti's on vacation. Maybe yes, maybe no. There's his shop. There's the sign, closed on account of illness. What kind of illness, Jim? He eat too many candy at the show? He gets seasick on everybody's favorite ride? Cut it, Will. No, sir, I won't cut it. Sure, the merry-go-round sounds keen. You think I like being 13 all the time? Not me, but for cry-eye, Jim. Face it, you don't really want to be 20. What else we talked about all summer? Talk, sure, but throwing yourself head first in that tapping machine and getting your bones pulled long, Jim. You wouldn't know what to do with your bones then. I'd know, said Jim in the night. I'd know. Sure, you just go away and leave me here, Jim. Why, protested the other, I wouldn't leave you, Will. We'd be together. Together? You 2 feet taller and going around feeling your leg and arm bones? You looking down at me, Jim, and what we talk about, me with my pockets full of kite string and marbles and frog eyes, and you with clean nice and empty pockets and making fun? Is that what we talk? And you able to run faster and ditch me? I'd never ditch you, Will. Ditch me in a minute. Well, go on, Jim. Just go on and leave me, because I got in my pocket knife, and there's nothing wrong with me sitting under a tree playing mumbledy-peg while you get yourself playing crazy with the heat of all those horses racing around, but thank God they're not racing anymore. And it's your fault, cried Jim. He stopped. Will stiffened and made fists. You mean I should have let young, mean and terrible get old, mean and terrible enough to chew your heads off? Just let him ride around and hawk his spit on our eye? And maybe you with him, waving goodbye, going around again, waving so long, and all I got to do is wave back, Jim? That what you mean? Shh, said Jim. Like you say, it's too late. The carousel's broke. And when it's fixed, they ride old horrible Cougar back, make him young enough so he can speak and remember our names. And then they come like cannibals after us, or just like me. And if you want to get in good with them, and go tell them my name and where I live, I wouldn't do that, Will. Jim touched him. Oh, Jim, do you see? Don't you? Everything in its time, like the preacher said only last month. Everything 1 by 1, not 2 by 2, will you remember? Everything, said Jim, in its time. And then they heard voices from the police station. In one of the rooms to the right of the entrance, a woman was talking now, and men were talking. Will nodded to Jim, and they ran quietly over to pick their way through the bushes and look into the room. There sat Miss Foley. There sat Will's father. I don't understand, said Miss Foley. To think Will and Jim would break into my house, steal, run off. You saw their faces? Asked Mr. Holloway. When I screamed, they looked back under the light. That's not mentioning the nephew, thought Will. And she won't, of course. You see, Jim, he wanted to shout. It was a trap. The nephew waited for us to come prowling. He wanted to get up in so much trouble, no matter what we said to anybody, police, parents, that nobody'd listen to us about carnivals, late hours, merry-go-rounds, because our word be no good. I don't want to prosecute, said Miss Foley, but if they are innocent, where are their boys? Here, someone cried. Will, said Jim. Too late, for Will had jumped high and was scrambling through the window. Here, he said, simply as he touched the floor. 27. They walked home quietly on the moon-colored sidewalks, Mr. Holloway between the boys. When they reached home, Will's father sighed. Jim, I don't see any reason to tear your mother to bits at this hour. If you promise to tell her this whole thing at breakfast, I'll let you off. Can you get in without waking her up? Sure. Look what we got. We? Jim nodded and took them over to fumble among the clusters of thick moss and leaves on the side of the house until they found the iron rungs they had secretly nailed in place to make a hidden ladder up to Jim's room. Mr. Holloway laughed once, almost with pain, and a strange wild sadness shook his head. How long has this gone on? No, don't tell. I did it too, your age. He looked up at the ivy towards Jim's window. Fun being out late, free as all hell, he caught himself. You don't stay out too long. This week was the first time after midnight. Dad pondered a moment. Having permission would spoil everything, I suppose. It's sneaking out to the lake, the graveyard, the rail tracks, the peach orchards, summer nights, that counts. Gosh, Mr. Holloway, did you once? Yes, but don't let the women know I told you. Up. He motioned. And don't come out again any night for the next month. Yes, sir. Jim swung monkey-wise to the stars, flashed through his window, shut it, drew the shade. Dad looked up at the hidden runs coming down out of the starlight to the running free world of sidewalks that invited the 1,000-yard dash, the high hurdles of dark bushes, the pole vault cemetery trellises and balls. You know what I hate most of all, Will? Not being able to run any more like you. Yes, sir, said his son. Let's have it clear now, said Dad. Tomorrow go apologize to Miss Foley again. Check her lawn. We may have missed some of the stolen property with matches and flashlights. Then go to the police chief to report. You're lucky you turned yourself in. You're lucky Miss Foley won't press charges. Yes, sir. They walked back to the side of their own house. Dad raked his hand in the ivy. Our place, too. His hand found a rug Will had nailed away among the leaves. Our place, too. He took out his tobacco pouch, filled his pipe as they stood by the ivy, the hidden rungs leading up to warm beds, safe rooms, then lit his pipe and said, I know you're not acting guilty. You didn't steal anything. No. Then why did you say you did to the police? Because Miss Foley, who knows why, wants us guilty. If she says we are, we are. You saw how surprised she was to see us come in through the window. She never figured we'd confess. Well, we did. We got enough enemies without the law on us, too. I figured if we made a clean breast, they'd go easy. They did. We got enough enemies without the law on us, too. I figured if they go easy, they did. At the same time, boy, Miss Foley's won, too, because now we're criminals. Nobody will believe what we say. I'll believe, will you? Will searched the shadows on his father's face, saw whiteness of his skin, eyeball, and hair. Dad, the other night at 3 o'clock in the morning, 3 in the morning, he saw Dad flinches from a cold wind, as if he smelled and knew the whole thing and simply could not move, reach out, touch, and pat Will. And he knew he could not say it. Tomorrow, yes. Some other day, yes. But perhaps with the sun coming up, the tents would be gone, the freaks off over the world, leaving them alone, knowing they were scared enough not to say anything. Just keep their mouths shut. Maybe it would all blow over, maybe. Maybe. Yes, Will, said his father, with difficulty, the pipe in his head going dead. Go on. No, thought Will. Let Jim and me be cannibalized. No one else. Anyone that knows gets hurt, so no one else must be. No. Aloud he said, In a couple of days, Dad, I'll tell you everything, I swear. Mom's honor. Mom's honor, said Dad at last, is good enough for me. 28. The night was sweet with the dust of autumn leaves that smelled as if fine sands of ancient Egypt were drifting to dunes beyond the town. How come, thought Will, at a time like this I can even think of 4,000 years of dust and ancient people sliding around the world, and me sad because no one notices except me and Dad here, maybe, and even us not telling each other. It was indeed a time between. One second their thoughts all brambled Airedale, the next all silken slumbering cat. It was a time to go to bed, yet still they lingered reluctant as boys to give over and wander in wide circles to pillow and night thoughts. It was a time to say much, but not at all. It was a time after first discoveries, but not last ones. It was wanting to know everything and wanting to know nothing. It was the new sweetness of men starting to talk as they must talk. It was the possible bitterness of revelation. So while they should have gone upstairs, they could not depart this moment that promised others on not-so-distant nights, when man and boy becoming man might almost sing. So Will at last said carefully, Dad, am I a good person? I think so. I know so. Yes. Will that help when things get really rough? It'll help. Will it save me if I need saving? I mean, if I'm around bad people and there's no one else good around for miles, what then? It'll help. That's not good enough, Dad. Good is no guarantee for your body. It's mainly for peace of mind. But sometimes, Dad, aren't you so scared that even the mind isn't peaceful? The father nodded, his face uneasy. Dad, said Will, his voice very faint, are you a good person? To you and your mother, yes, I try, but no man's a hero to himself. I've lived with me a lifetime, Will. I know everything worth knowing about myself, and adding it all up, the sum, as they come and go, I mostly sit very still and tight. Yes, I'm all right. Then Dad asked Will, why aren't you happy? The front lawn at, 1:30 in the morning is no place to start a philosophical. I just wanted to know is all. There was a long moment of silence. Dad sighed. Dad took his arm, walked him over and sat him down on the porch steps and relit his pipe. Puffing, he said, all right, your mother's asleep. She doesn't know we're out here with our tomcat talk. We can go on. Look, since when did you think about being good meant happy? Since always. Since now learn otherwise. Sometimes the man who looks happiest in town with the biggest smile is the one carrying the biggest load of sin. There are smiles and smiles. Learn to tell the dark variety from the light. The seal barker, the laugh shouter, half the time he's covering up. He's had his fun and he's guilty. And men do love sin. Will, oh how they love it, never doubt, in all shapes, sizes, colors, and smells. Time comes when troughs, not tables, suit our appetites. Hear a man too loudly praising others, or look to wonder if he didn't just get up and sigh. On the other hand, that unhappy, pale, put-upon man walking by, who looks all guilt and sin, why, he's often your good man with a capital G, Will, for being good is a fearful occupation. Men strain at it and sometimes break in two. I've known a few. You work twice as hard to be a farmer as to be a hog. I suppose it's thinking about trying to be good that makes the crack run up the wall one night. A man with high standards, too. The least hair falls on him sometimes wilts his spine. He can't let himself alone, won't lift himself off the hook if he falls just a breath from grace. Oh, it would be lovely if you could just be fine, act fine, not think of it all the time, but it's hard, right? With the last piece of lemon cake waiting in the icebox, middle of the night, not yours, but you lie awake in a hot sweat for it, eh? Do I need to tell you? Or a spring day, noon, and there you are, chained to your school desk, and away off there goes the river, cool and fresh over the rockfall. Boys can hear clear water like that miles away, so minute by minute, hour by hour, a lifetime, it never ends, never stops. You've got the choice this second, now this next, and the next after that. Be good, be bad. That's what the clock ticks. That's what it says in the ticks. Run, swim, or stay hot. Run, eat, or lie hungry. So you stay, but once stayed, Will. You know the secret, don't you? Don't think of the river again, or the cake, because if you do, you'll go crazy. Add up all the rivers never swum in, cakes never eaten, and by the time you get my age, well, it's a lot missed out on. And then you console yourself, thinking the more times in, the more times possibly drowned or choked on lemon frosting. But then, through plain dumb cowardice, I guess, maybe you hold off from too much. Wait, play it safe. Look at me, married at 39, Will, 39. But I was so busy wrestling myself 2 falls out of 3. I figured I couldn't marry until I had licked myself good and forever. Too late, I found you can't wait to become perfect. You got to go out and fall down and get out with everybody else. So at last I looked up from my great self-wrestling match one night when your mother came to the library for a book and got me instead. And I saw then and there you take a man half bad and a woman half bad and put their 2 good halves together, and you got one human all good to share between. That's you, Will, for my money. And the strange thing is, son, and sad too, though you're always racing out there on the rim of the lawn, and me on the roof using books for shingles, comparing life to libraries, I soon saw you were wiser, sooner, better than I will ever be. Dad's pipe was dead. He paused to tap it out and reload it. No, sir, Will said. Yes, said his father. I'd be a fool not to know and a fool. Why, one wisdom is you're wise. Funny, Will said after a long pause. You've told me more tonight than I've told you. I'll think some more. Maybe I'll tell you everything at breakfast, okay? I'll be ready if you are, because I want you to be happy, Dad. He hated the tears that sprang to his eyes. I'll be all right, Will. Anything I could say or do to make you happy, I would. Willie, William, Dad lit his pipe again, and watched the smoke blow away in sweet dissolvings. Just tell me I'll live forever. That'll do nicely. His voice, Will thought. I never noticed. It's the same color as his hair. Pa, he said, don't sound so sad. Me? I'm the original sad man. I read a book and it makes me sad. See a film? Sad. Plays? That really works me over. Is there anything, said Will, that doesn't make you sad? One thing. Death. Boy, Will started. I should think that would. No, said the man with a voice to match his hair. Death makes everything else sad, but death itself only scares. If there wasn't death, all the other things wouldn't get tainted. And, Will thought, here comes the carnival. Death like a rattle in one hand, life like candy in the other. Shake one to scare you, offer one to make your mouth water. Here comes the sideshow, both hands full. He jumped to his feet. Dad, oh listen, you'll live forever. Believe me or you're sunk. Sure, you were sick a few years ago, but that's over. Sure, you're 54, but that's young. And another thing, yes, Willie? His father waited for him. He swayed. He bit his lips, then blurted out, Don't go near the carnival. Strange, his father said. That's what I was going to tell you. I wouldn't go back to that place for $1 billion, but Will thought that won't stop the carnival searching through town to visit me. Promise, Dad? You don't want me to go there, Will? That's one of the things I'll tell tomorrow or next week or next year. You just gotta trust me, Dad. I do, son. Dad took his hand. It's a promise. As if at a signal, both turned to the house. The time was up. The hour was late. Enough had been said. They properly sensed they must go. The way you came out, said Dad, is the way you go in. Will walked silently to touch the iron rungs hidden under the rustling ivy. Dad, you won't pull these off? Dad probed one with his fingers. Some day, when you're tired of them, you'll take them off yourself. I'll never be tired of them. Is that how it seems? Yes, to someone your age, you figure you'll never get tired of anything. All right, son, up you go. He saw how his father looked up along the ivy in the hidden path. You want to come up this way, too? No, his father said quickly. Because, said Will, you're welcome. That's all right, go on. But still he looked at the ivy, staring in the dark morning light. Will sprang up, grabbed his first, then second, then third rungs, and looked down. From just this distance, Dad looked as if he were shrinking, there on the ground. Somehow, he didn't want to leave him behind, there in the night, like someone ditched by someone else, one hand up to move but not moving. Dad, he whispered, you ain't got the stuff. Who says? Cried Dad's mouth, silently, and he jumped. And laughing without sound, the man swung up the side of the house, unceasingly, hand over hand, foot after foot. He heard Dad slip, scrabble, grab. Hold tight, he thought. Ah, the man breathed hard. Eyes tight, Will prayed. Hold, there, now. The old man gusted out, sucked in, swore in a fierce whisper, and climbed again. Will opened his eyes and climbed, and the rest was smooth. Higher, higher. Fine, sweet, wondrous done. They swung in and sat upon the sill, same size, same weight, colored same by the stars, and sat embraced once more with grand, fine exhaustion, gasping on huge ink-gold laughs which sweat their bones together, and for fear of waking God, country, wife, mom, and hell, they snug-clapped hands to each other's mouths, felt the vibrant, warm hilarity fountain there, and sat one instant longer, eyes bright with each other and wet with love. Then, with a last strong clasp, Dad was gone, the bedroom door shut, drunk on the long night's doings. Lulled away from fear toward better, grander things, bounded Dad. Will slung off limp, falling clothes with tipsy arms and delightfully aching legs, like the fall of thunder, clopped himself to bed. "29. He slept for exactly 1 hour, and then, as if remembering something he had only half seen, he woke, sat up, and peered out at Jim's rooftop. "The lightning rod!" he yelped. "It's gone!" Which indeed it was. Stolen? No. Jim taken it down? Yes. Why? For the shucks of it. Smiling, he had climbed to scuttle the iron, dare any storm to strike his house. Afraid? No. Fear was a new electric power suit Jim must try for size. "Jim!" Will wanted to smash his confounded window. "Go nail the rod back before morn. Jim, the blasted carnival will send someone to find where we live. Don't know how they'll come or what they'll look like, but Lord, your roof's so empty. The clouds are moving fast, that storm's rushing at us, and Will stopped. What sort of noise does a balloon make? Adrift? None. No, not quite. It noises itself. It saws like the wind billowing your curtains all white as breaths of foam. Or it makes a sound like the stars turning over in your sleep. Or it announces itself like moonrise and moonset. That last best, like the moon sailing the universal deeps, so rides the balloon. How do you hear it? How are you warned? The ear does it hear? No, but the hairs on the back of your neck and the peach fuzz in your ears, they do, and the hair along your arms sings like grasshopper legs, frictioned and trembling with strange music. So you know, you feel, you are sure, lying abed, that a balloon is submerging the ocean sky. Will sensed a stir in Jim's house. Jim, too, with his fine dark antennae, must have felt the waters part high over the town and let a leviathan pass. Both boys felt a shadow bulk the drive between houses. Both flung up their windows, both poked their heads out, both dropped their jaws in surprise at this friendly, this always exquisite timing, this delightful pantomime of intuition, of apprehension, their tandem teamwork over the years. Then sober-faced, for moon was rising, both glanced up, as the balloon wafted over and vanished. "Holy cow, what's that a balloon doing here?" Jim asked, but wished no answer. For peering, they both knew the balloon was searching, the best search ever. No car motor racket, no tires whining asphalt, no footsteps street, just the wind clearing a great Amazon through the clouds for a solemn voyage of wicker basket and storm sail riding over. Neither Jim nor Will crashed his window or pulled his shade. They simply had to stay motionless for waiting, for they heard the noise again like a murmur in someone else's dream. The temperature dropped 40 degrees, because now the storm-bleached balloon whisper-pearled. Plummet sank softly down, its elephant shadow cooling gemmed lawns and sundials as they flaunted their swift gaze high through that shadow. And what they saw was something akimbo to a rustle in the down-hung Whittaker carriage. Was that head and shoulders? Yes, with the moon like a silver cloak thrown up behind. Mr. Dark, thought Will. The Crusher, thought Jim. The Wart, thought Will. The Skeleton, the Lava Sipper, the Hanging Man, Monsieur Guillotine. No, the Dust Witch. The witch who might draw skulls and bones in the dust, then sneeze it away. Jim looked to Will and Will to Jim. Both read their lips. The witch! But why a wax crony flung out in a night balloon to search, thought Will. Why none of the others, with their lizard venom, wolf fire, snake spit eyes? Why send a crumbled statue with a blind newt lashes sewn tight with black widow thread? And then, looking up, they knew, for the witch, though peculiar wax, was peculiarly alive. Blind, yes, but she thrust down rust-splotched fingers, which petted, stroked the sluices of air, which cut and splayed the wind, peeled layers of space, blinded stars, which hovered and danced and fixed and pointed as did her nose. And the boys knew even more. They knew that she was blind, but special blind. She could dip down her hands to feel the bumps of the world, to touch house roofs, probe attic bins, reap dust, examine draughts that blew through the halls and souls that blew through people, draughts vented from bellows to thump wrist, to pound temples, to pulse throat, and back to bellows again, just as they felt that balloon sift down like an autumn rain, so she could feel their souls re-inhabit their tremulous nostrils. Each soul, a vast warm fingerprint, felt different. She could roil it in her hand like clay, smelled different. Will could hear her snuffing his wife away, tasted different. She savored them with her raw-gummed mouth. Her puff at her tongue sounded different. She stuffed their souls in one ear, tissued them out the other. Her hands played down the air, one for Will, one for Jim. The balloon's shadow washed them with panic, rinsed them with terror. The witch exhaled. The balloon, freed of this small, sour ballast, uprose. The shadow passed. "Oh, God," said Jim, "now they know we're alive." Both gasped. "Sorry, where we live." Both gasped. Some monstrous baggage brushed and dragged across the shingles of Jim's house. "Will, she's got me." "No, I think the drag brush rustle scurried from the bottom to the top of Jim's roof." Then Will saw the balloon whirl up, fly off toward the hills. "She's gone. There she goes, Jim. She did something to your roof. Shove the monkey pole over." Jim slid the long, slender clothesline pole over. Will fixed it on his sill, then swung out, hand over hand, swung until Jim pulled him through his window, and they barefooted it into Jim's clothes closet, and boosted and hoisted each other up inside the attic that smelled like lumber mills, old, dark, and too silent. Perched out on the high roof, shivering, Will cried, "Jim, there it is!" And there it was in the moonlight. It was a track like a snail paints on a sidewalk. It glistened. It was silver slick, but this was a path left by a gigantic snail that, if it existed at all, weighed 100 pounds. The silver ribbon was a yard across, starting down at the leaf-filled rain trough. The silver track shimmered to the rooftop, then trimmered down the other side. "Why?" gasped Jim. "Why? Easier than looking for house numbers or street names. She marked your roof so she can see it for miles around, night or day. Oh my gosh." Jim bent to touch the track. A faint, evil-smelling glue covered his finger. "Will, what'll we do?" "I got a hunch," the other whispered. "They won't be back till morning. They can't just start a rumpus. They got some plan. Right now, that's what we do." Coiled across the lawn below like a vast boa constrictor waiting for them was the garden hose. Will was gone down fast and didn't knock anything over or wake anyone up. Jim on the roof was surprised in no time at all when Will came scuttling up, all panting teeth and water-fizzing hose in his fist. "Will, you're a genius. Sure, quick." They dragged the hose to drench the shingles, to wash the silver, flood the evil mercury paint away. Working, Will glanced off at the pure color of night turning toward morn, and saw the balloon trying to make decisions on the wind. Did it sense? Would it come back? Would she mark the roof again, and they have to wash it off, and she mark it, and they wash it until dawn? Yes, if need be. If only, thought Will, I could stop the witch for good. They don't know our names or where we live. Mr. Cougar's too near dead to remember or tell. The dwarf, if he is the lightning rod man, is mad, and, God willing, won't recollect. And they won't dare bother Miss Folly until morning. So, grinding their teeth way out in the meadows, they've sent the dust witch to search. I'm a fool," grieved Jim, quietly rinsing the roof where the lightning rod had been. "Why didn't I leave it up?" "Lightning hasn't struck yet," Will said. "If we jump lively, it won't. Now over there." They showered the roof. Below, someone put down a window. "Mom," Jim laughed bleakly. "She thinks it's raining." The rain ceased. The roof was clean. They let the hose snake away to thump on the night grass. 1,000 miles below. Beyond town, the balloon still paused between unpromising midnight and promised and hoped for sun. Why is she waiting? Maybe she smells what we're up to. They went back down to the attic and soon were in the separate rooms and beds after many fevers and chills of talk, and now lay quietly and separate, listening to hearts and clocks beat too quickly toward dawn. Whatever they do, thought Will, we must do it first. He wished the balloon might fly back, the witch might guess where they had washed her mark off and soar down to trace the roof again. Why? Because he found himself staring at his Boy Scout archery set, the big beautiful bow and quiver of arrows arranged on the east wall of his room. "Sorry, Dad," he thought, and sat up smiling. "This time it's me out alone. I don't want her going back to report on us for hours, maybe days." He grabbed the bow and quiver from the wall, hesitated, thinking, then stealthily ran the window up and leaned out. No need to holler loud and long, no. But just think real hard. They can't read thoughts. I know that's sure, or they wouldn't send her. And she can't read thoughts, but she can feel body heat and special temperatures and special smells and excitements. And if I jump up and down and let her know just by my feeling good about having tricked her, maybe. 4 o'clock in the morning, said a drowsy clock chime. Off in another land. Witch, he thought, come back. Witch, he thought louder and let his blood pound. The roof's clean here. We made our own rain. You gotta come back and remark it. Witch. And the witch moved. He felt the earth turn under the balloon. Okay, witch, come on, there's just me, the no-name boy. You can't read my mind, but here's me spitting on you, and here's me yelling we tricked you, and the general idea gets through, so come on, dare, double dare you. Miles away there was a gasp of assent rising, coming near. Holy cow, he thought suddenly, I don't want her back to this house. Come on, he thrashed into his clothes. Clutching his weapons, he aped down the hidden ivy rungs and dogged the wet grass. Witch, here! He ran, leaving patterns, ran feeling crazy fine, wild as a hare who has chewed some secret, delicious, sweetly poisonous root and now gallops in berserk. Knees striking his chin, shoes crushing wet leaves, he soared over a hedge, his hands full of bristly, porcupine weapons, fear and joy a tumble of mixed marbles in his mouth. He looked back. The balloon swung near. It inhaled, exhaled itself along from tree to tree, from cloud to cloud. Where am I going? He thought. Wait, the Redmond house. Not lived in years. 2 blocks more. There was a swift shush of his feet in the leaves, and the big shush of the creature in the sky, while moonlight snowed everything and stars glittered. He pulled up in front of the Redmond house, a torch in each lung, tasting blood, crying out silently, "Here, this is my house." He felt a great river change its bed in the sky. Good, he thought. His hand turned the doorknob of the old house. Oh, good, he thought. What if they are inside waiting for me? He opened a door on darkness. Dust came and went in the dark, and a harp-string gesticulation of spiders, nothing else. Will jumped 2 at a time up the crumbling stairs, around and out on the roof where he stashed his weapons behind the chimney and stood tall. The balloon, green as slime, printed with Titan pictures, the winged scorpions, ancient phoenixes, smoke spires, clouded weather, swung its wicker basket wheezing down. Which, he thought, here, the dank shadow struck him like a batwing. Will toppled. He flung up his hands. The shadow was almost black flesh striking. He fell. He clutched the chimney. The shadow draped him, hushing down. It was cold as a sea cave in that cloud dark, but suddenly the wind itself veered. The witch hissed in frustration. The balloon swam a washing circle upward. The wind, thought the boy wildly. It's on my side. No, don't go, he thought. Come back. For he feared she had smelled his plan. She had. She itched for his scheme. She snuffed. She gasped at it. He saw the way her nails filed and scraped the air as if running over grooved wax to seek patterns. She turned her palms out and down as if he were a small stove burning softly somewhere in another world, and she came to warn her hands at him. As the basket swung in an up-glided pendulum, he saw her squinched, blind-sewn eyes, the ears with moss in them, the pale, wrinkled apricot mouth mummifying the air it drew in, trying to taste what was wrong with his act, his thought. He was too good, too rare, too fine, too available to be true. Surely she knew that, and knowing it, she held her breath, which made the balloon suspend itself half between inhale and exhale, now tremulously, experimentally daring to test. The witch inhaled, the balloon so weighted sank, exhaled, so freed of vapor the craft ascended. Now, the waiting, the holding of dank, sour breath in the wry tissues of her childlike body. Will waggled his fingers, thumb to nose. She sucked air. The weight of this one breath skimmed the balloon down. Closer, he thought, but careful she circled her craft. Scenting the dark adrenaline wafted from his pores, he wheeled, following as the balloon spun, and him reeling. You, he thought, you want me sick? Spin me, will you? Make me dizzy? There was one last thing to try. He stood very still with his back to the balloon. Which, he thought, you can't resist. He felt the sound of the green slime cloud. He kept bag of sour air, the squeal and stir of mouse wicker on wicker, as the shadow cooled his legs, his spine, his neck. Close! The witch took air. Wait, nightbird and star and cold wind ballast. Closer! The elephant shadow stroked his ears. He nudged his weapons. The shadow engulfed him. A spider flicked his hair. Her hand? Choking a scream, he spun. The witch leaned out, was mere a foot away. He bent. He snatched. The wind tried to scream out breath while she smelled. Felt, knew what he held tight, but in reaction, horrified, she seized a breath, sucked weight, burdened a balloon. It dragged the roof. Will pulled the bowstring back, freighted with single destruction. The bow broke in 2 pieces. He stared at the unshot arrow in his hands. The witch let out her breath in one great sigh of relief and triumph. The balloon swung up. It struck him with its dry, rattled, chuckling, heavy-laden basket. The witch shouted again with insane happiness, clutched to the basket rim. Will, with one free hand, drew back, and with all his strength, threw the arrowhead flint up at the balloon flash. The witch gagged. She tore at his face. Then the arrow, long hour it seemed in flight, razored a small vent in the balloon. Rapidly the shaft sank as if cutting a vast green cheese. The surface slid itself further in a wide rippling smile across the surface of the gigantic pear as the blind witch grabbled, moaned, blistered her lips, shrieked in protest, and Will hung fast, hands gripped to the wicker, kicking legs as the balloon wailed, whiffled, guzzled, mourned its own swift gaseous death, as dungeon air raved out, as dragon breath gushed forth, and the bag thus driven retreated up. Will let go. Space whistled about him. He turned, hit shingles, fell skidding down the inclined ancient roof, over down to rim to rainspout, where feet first he spilled into further emptiness, yelling, clawed at the rain gutter, held, felt it groan, give way, as he swept the sky to see the balloon whistling, wrinkling, flying up like a wounded beast to evacuate its terrified exhalations in the clouds. A gunshot mammoth, not wanting to expire, yet in terrible flux coughing out its stinking winds. All this in a flash. Then Will flailed into space with no time to be glad for a tree beneath when it netted him, cut him, but broke his fall with mattress twig, branch, and limb. Like a kite he was held face up to the moon, where, at his exhausted leisure, he might hear the last witch lamentations for a wake in progress as the balloon spiraled her way from house to street to town with inhuman warns. The balloon smile, the balloon rip, was all-encompassing now as it wandered in deliriums to die in the meadows from which it had come, sinking down now beyond all the sleeping, ignorant, and unknowing houses. For a long while Will could not move, buoyed in the tree branches, afraid he might slip through and kill himself on the black earth below. He waited for the sledge-hammer to subside in his head. The blows of his heart might jar him loose, crash him down, but he was glad to hear them, know himself alive. But then at last gone calm, he gathered his limbs, most carefully searched for a prayer, and climbed himself down through the tree. 31. Nothing much else happened all the rest of that night. 32. At dawn, a juggernaut of thunder wheeled over the stony heavens in a spark-throwing tumult. Rain fell softly on town cupolas, chuckled from rain spouts, and spoke in strange subterranean tongues beneath the windows where Jim and Will knew fitful dreams. Slipping out of one, trying another for size, but finding it all cut from the same dark, mouldered cloth, in the rustling drumbeat a second thing occurred. From the sodden carnival grounds, the carousel suddenly spasmed to life. Its calliope fluted up melodious steams of music. Perhaps only one person in town heard and guessed the carousel was working again. The door to Miss Foley's house opened and shut. Her footsteps hurried away along the street. Then the rain fell hard as lightning did a crippled dance down the tunnel, totally revealed, now vanishing forever land, in Jim's house and Will's house as the rain nuzzled the breakfast windows. There was a lot of quiet talk, some shouting and more quiet talk again. At 9:15 Jim shuffled out into the Sunday weather, wearing his raincoat, cap, and rubbers. He stood gazing at his roof where the giant snail track was washed away. Then he stared at Will's door to make it open. It did. Will emerged. His father's voice followed. "Want me to come along?" Will shook his head firmly. The boys walked solemnly, the sky washing them, toward the police station where they would talk to Miss Foley's, where they would apologize again. But right now they only walked, hands in pockets, thinking of yesterday's fearful puzzle. At last Jim broke the silence. "Last night after we washed off the roof and I finally got to sleep, I dreamed of a funeral. It came right down Main Street like a visit. Or a parade? That's it, 1,000 people all dressed in black coats, black hats, black shoes, and a coffin 40 feet long, criminally. Right, that's 40 feet long needs to be buried, I thought, and in the dream I ran up and looked in. Don't laugh, I don't feel funny, Jim. And the long coffin was a big, long, wrinkled thing like a prune or a big grape lying in the sun, like a big skin or a giant's head drying. The balloon! Hey," Jim stopped. "You must have had the same dream. But balloons can't die, can they?" Will was silent. "And you don't have funerals for them, do you?" "Jim, darn balloon laid out like a hippo someone leaked the wind out of, like—" "Jim, last night black plumes waving. Band banging on black velvet muffled drums with black ivory bones. Boy. Then on top of it, have to get up this morning and tell Mom, not everything, but enough so she cried and yelled and cried some more. Women sure like to cry, don't they? And called me her criminal son, but we didn't do anything bad, did we, Will? Someone almost took a ride on a merry-go-round." Jim walked along in the rain. "I don't think I want any more of that." "You don't think? After all this? Good grief. Let me tell you. The witch, Jim, the balloon, last night all alone, But there was no time to tell it. No time to tell his stabbing the balloon, so it gusted away to die in the lonely country, stinking the blind woman with it. No time, because walking in the cold rain now, they heard a sad sound. They were passing an empty lot, deep within which stood a vast oak tree. Under it were rainy shadows and the sound. "Jim," said Will, "someone's crying." "No," Jim moved on. "There's a little girl in there." "No," Jim would not look. "What would a girl be doing out under the tree in the rain? Come on, Jim, you hear her." "No, I don't. But then the crying came stronger across the dead grass, flew like a sad bird through the rain, and Jim had to turn, for there was Will marching across the rubble. "Jim, that voice, I know it. Will, don't go there." And Jim did not move, but Will stumbled and walked until he entered the shade of the raining tree, where the sky fell and was lost in autumn leaves, and crept down at last in shining rivers along the branches and trunk. And there was the little girl crouched, her face buried in her hands, weeping as if the town had gone, and the people in it, and herself lost in a terrible woods. And at last Jim came edging up and stood at the edge of the shadow and said, "Who is it?" "I don't know," but Will felt tears start to his eyes as if some part of him guessed. "It's not Jenny Holdridge, is it?" "No." "Jane Franklin?" "No." His mouth felt full of Novocaine, his tongue merely stirred his numb lips. "No." The little girl wept, feeling them near, but not looking up yet. Me, help me, nobody will help me. I don't like this." Then when she had the strength enough and was quieter, she turned her face, her eyes almost swollen shut with weeping. She was shocked to see anyone near, then surprised. "Jim, Will, oh God, it's you." She seized Jim's hand. He writhed back, yelling, "No, I don't know you, let go. Will, help me, Jim. Oh, don't go, don't leave," she gasped brokenly, new tears bursting from her eyes. "No, no, don't," screamed Jim. He thrashed, he broke free, fell, leaped to his feet, one fist raised to strike. He stopped, trembling, held it to his sight. "Oh, Will, let's get out of here. I'm sorry. Oh, God, God." The little girl in the shadow of the tree flung back, widened her eyes to fix the two in wetness, moaned, clutched herself, and rocked back and forth, her own child baby comforting her elbows. Soon she might sing herself and sing that way, alone beneath the dark tree forever, no one able to join or stop the song. "Someone must help me, someone must help her," she mourned as for one dead. "Someone must help her. Nobody will, nobody has. Help her if not me. Terrible, terrible. She knows us," said Will, hopelessly, half bent down to her, half turned to Jim. "I can't leave her. Lies," said Jim wildly. "Lies. She don't know us. Never saw her before. She's gone. Bring her back. She's gone. Bring her back," mourned the girl, eyes shut. "Find who?" Will got down on one knee, dared to touch her hand. She grabbed him. Almost immediately she knew this was wrong, for he tried to tear her free so she wouldn't let him go, and wept while he waited near her, and Jim, far out in the dead grass, called in for them to go. He didn't like it. They must go. "Oh, she's lost," sobbed the little girl. "She ran off in that place and never came back. Will you find her, please, please?" Shivering, Will touched her cheek. "Hey now," he whispered. "You'll be okay. I'll find help," he said gently. She opened her eyes. "This is Will Holloway, okay? Cross my heart, we'll be back 10 minutes, but you mustn't go away." She shook her head. "You'll wait here under the tree for us?" She nodded mutely. He stood up. The simple motion frightened her, and she flinched. So he waited and looked at her and said, "I know who you are." He saw the great familiar eyes open gray in the small wounded face. He saw the long rain-washed black hair and the pale cheeks. "I know who you are, but I got to check. Who will believe?" she wailed. "I believe," said Will. And she lay back against the tree, her hands in her lap, trembling, very thin, very white, very lost, very small. "Can I go now?" he said. She nodded. Then he walked away. At the edge of the lot, Jim stomped his feet in disbelief, almost hysterical with outrage and declamation. "It can't be." "It is," said Will. "The eyes, that's how you could tell. Like it was with Mr. Cougar and the evil boy. There's one way to be sure. Come on." And he took Jim through the town, and they stopped at last in front of Miss Foley's house and looked at the unlit windows in the morning gloom and walked up the steps and rang the bell once, twice, 3 times. Silence. Very slowly the front door moved, winding back on its hinges. "Miss Foley," Jim called softly. Somewhere off in the house, shadows of rain moved on the window panes. "Miss Foley?" They stood in the hall by the bead rain in the empty entry door, listening to the great attic beams, a shift and a stir in the downpour. "Miss Foley!" Louder. But only the mice in the walls, warmly nestled, made sgraffito sounds in answer. "She's gone out to shop," said Jim. "No," said Will. "We know where she is." "Miss Foley, I know you're here," shouted Jim suddenly, savagely, dashing upstairs. "Come on out, you!" Will waited for him to search and dragged slowly back down. As Jim reached the bottom of the steps, they both heard the music blowing through the front door, the smell of the fresh rain and ancient grass, the carousel calliope among the hills piping the funeral march backwards. Jim opened the door wider and stood in the music as one stands in the rain. "The merry-go-round, they fixed it." Will nodded. "She must have heard the music, gone out at sunrise. Something went wrong. Maybe the carousel wasn't fixed right. Maybe the accidents happen all the time. Like to the lightning rod man, him inside out crazy. Maybe the carnival likes accidents, gets a kick out of them. Or maybe they did something to her on purpose. Maybe they wanted to know more about us, our names, where we live, or wanted her to help them hurt us. Who knows what? Maybe she got suspicious or scared. Then they just gave her more than she ever wanted or asked for. I don't understand." But now in the doorway, in the cold rain, there was time to think of Miss Foley afraid of mirror mazes, Miss Foley alone and not so long ago at the carnival, and maybe screaming when they did what they finally did to her. Around and around, around and around, too many years, more years than she had ever dreamed of, shocked away, rubbing her raw, leaving her naked, small, alone, and bewildered, because unknown even to herself, around and around until all the years were gone and the carousel rocked to a halt like a roulette wheel, and nothing gained and all lost, and nowhere for her to go, no way to tell the strangeness, and nothing to do but weep under a tree alone in the autumn rain. Will thought this. Jim thought it, and said, "Oh, the poor, poor, we've got to help her, Jim. Who else would believe? If she tells anyone I'm Miss Foley, get away, they'd say. Miss Foley's left town, disappeared. Go on, little girl." "Oh, Jim, I bet she's pounded a dozen doors this morning wanting help and scared people with her screaming and yelling, then run off, gave up, and hid under that tree. Police are probably looking for her now, but so what? It's just a wild girl crying, and they'll lock her away and say she'll go crazy. That carnival boy, do they know how to punish you so you can't hit back? They just shake you up and change you so no one ever knows you again and let you run free. It's okay, go ahead, talk, 'cause folks are too scared for you to listen. Only we here, Jim, only you and me, and right now I feel like I just ate a cold snail raw. They looked back a last time at the shadows of rain crying on the windows inside the parlor where a teacher had often served them cookies and hot chocolate and waved to them from the window and moved tall through the town. Then they stepped out and shut the door and ran back toward the empty lot. "We gotta hide her until we can help." "Help," panted Jim. "We can't help ourselves. There's gotta be weapons right in front of us. We're just too blind." They stopped. Beyond the thump of their own hearts, a greater heart thumped. Brass trumpets wailed. Trombones blared. A herd of tubas made an elephant charge, alarmed for unknown reasons. "The carnival!" gasped Jim. "We never thought it can come right into town. A parade, or that funeral I dreamt about, for the balloon." "Not a funeral, and only what looks like a parade, but it's a search for us, Jim, for us, or Miss Foley. If they want her back, they can march down any old street. Fine and dandy, and spy as they go, drum and bugle. Jim, we gotta get her before they—" And breaking off, they flung themselves down an alley, but stopped suddenly and leaped to hide in some bushes. At the far end of the alley, the carnival band, animal wagons, clowns, freaks, and all banged and crashed between them and the empty lot and the great oak tree. It must have taken 5 minutes for the parade to pass. The rain seemed to move on away, the clouds moving with them. The rain ceased, the strut of drums faded. The boys loped down the alley across the street and stopped by the empty lot. There was no little girl under the tree. They circled it, looked up in it, not daring to call a name. Then, very much afraid, they ran to hide themselves somewhere in the town. 33. The phone rang. Mr. Holloway picked it up. "Dad, this is Willie. We can't go to the police station. We may not be home today. Tell Mom. Tell Jim's mom." "Willie, where are you? We've got to hide. They're looking for us." "Who, for God's sake?" "I don't want you in it, Dad. You gotta believe we'll just hide one day, too, until they go away. If we come home, they'd follow and hurt Ma or Jim's mom. I've gotta go." "Willie, don't." "Oh, Dad," said Will. "Wish me luck." Click. Mr. Holloway looked out at the trees, the houses, the streets, hearing a faraway music. "Willie," he said to the dead phone, "luck." And he put on his coat and hat and went out into the strange, bright, rainy sunshine that filled the cold air. 34. In front of the United Cigar Store, on this before-noon Sunday, with the bells of all churches ringing across here, colliding with each other there, showering sound from the sky now that rain was spent, in front of the cigar store, the Cherokee wooden Indian stood, his carved plumes pearled with water, oblivious to Catholic or Baptist bells, oblivious to the steadily approaching sun-bright cymbals, the thumping pagan heart of the carnival band, the flourished drums, the old womanish shriek of Calliope, the shadow drift of the creatures far stranger than he, did not which the Indians' yellow hawk-fierced gaze. Still the drums did tilt churches and plummet forth mobs of boys curious and eager for any change mild or wild, so as the church bells stopped up their silver and iron rain, pew-stiffened crowds became relaxed parade crowds as the carnival, a promotion of brass, a flush of velvet, all lion pacing, a mammoth shuffling, flag fluttered by. A shadow of the Indian's wooden tomahawk lay on an iron grill embedded in the sidewalk in front of the cigar store. Over this grill, with faint metallic reverberations, year after year people passed dropping tonnages of mint gum wrapper, gold cigar band, match shub, cigarette butt, or copper penny, which vanished below forever. Now with the parade, hundreds of feet rang and clustered on the grill as the carnival strode by on stilts, roared by in tiger and volcano sounds and colors. Under the grill, 2 shapes trembled. Above, like a great baroque peacock striding the bricks and asphalt, the freak's eyes opened out to stare, to search office roofs, church spires, read dentists' and opticians' signs, check dime and dry goods stores as drums shocked plate glass windows, and wax dummies quaked in facsimiles of fear. A multitude of hot and incredibly bright fierce eyes, a parade moved, desiring but not quenching its desire, for the things it most wanted were hidden in the dark, Jim and Will under the cigar store sidewalk grill. Crouch pressed knee to knee, heads up, eyes alert, they sucked their breaths like iron popsicles. Above, women's dresses flowered in a cold breeze. Above, men tilted on the sky. The band, in a collision of cymbals, knocked children against their mothers' knees with concussion. "There!" exclaimed Jim. "The parade is right out in front of the cigar store." "What are we doing here, Will? Let's go." "No," cried Will, hoarsely, clenching Jim's knee. "It's the most obvious place in front of everybody. They'll never think to check here. Shut up." From the grill above rang with the touch of a man's shoe and the worn nails in that shoe. "Dad!" Will almost cried. He rose, sank back, biting his lips. Jim saw the man above wheel his this way, wheel that, searching so near, yet so far, 3 feet away. "I could just reach up," thought Will, but Dad, pale nervous, hurried on, and Will felt his soul fall over the cold and white jelly quivering inside. Bang! The boys jerked. A chewed lump of pink bubble gum falling had hit a pile of old paper near Jim's foot. A 5-year-old boy above, crouched on the grill, peered down with dismay after his vanished sweet. Get, thought Will. The boy knelt, hands to the grill. Go on, thought Will. He had a crazy wish to grab the gum and stuff it back up into the little boy's mouth. A parade drum thumped one huge time, then silence. Jim and Will glanced at each other. The parade, both thought, it's halted. The small boy stuck one hand half through the grill. Above in the street, Mr. Dark, the illustrated man, glanced back over the river of freaks' cages at the sunburst tubas and python brass horns. He nodded. The parade fell apart. The freaks hurried half to the one sidewalk, half to the other, mingling with the crowd, passing out handbills, eyes fire crystal quick, striking like snakes. The small boy's shadow cooled Will's cheek. The parade over, he thought. Now the search begins. Look, Ma, the small boy pointed down through the grill. There. 35. In Ned's night spot, half a block from the cigar store, Charles Holloway, exhausted from no sleep, too much thinking, far too much walking, finished a second coffee and was about to pay when the sharp silence from the street outside made him uneasy. He sensed rather than saw the mild, intermingled disturbance as the parade melted among the sidewalk crowds. Not knowing why, Charles Holloway put his money away. Warm it up again, Ned? Ned was pouring coffee when the door swung wide. Someone entered and splayed his right hand lightly on the counter. Charles Holloway stared. The hand stared back at him. There was a single eye tattooed on the back of each finger. Mom, down here, look! A boy cried, pointing through the grill. More shadows passed and lingered, including the skeleton. Tall as a dead tree in winter. All skull, all scarecrow-stilled bones. The thin man, the skeleton, Mr. Skull, played his xylophone shadow upon hidden things, cold paper rubbish, warm flinching boys below. Go, thought Will, go. The plump fingers of the child gesticulated through the grill. Go. Mr. Skull walked away. Thank God, thought Will, then gasped. Oh, no. For the dwarf had suddenly appeared, waddling along, a fringe of bells on his dirty shirt jingling softly, his toad shadow tucked under him. His eyes like broken splinters of brown marble, now bright on the surface mad, now deeply, mournfully, forever lost and gone buried away mad. Looking for something could not be found, a lost self somewhere, lost boys for an instant. Then the lost self again, two parts of the little squashed man fought to jerk, his flashing eyes here, there, around, up, down, one seeking the past, one in the immediate present. Mama, said the child. The dwarf stopped and looked at the boy no bigger than himself. Their eyes met. Will flung himself back, tried to gum his body into the concrete. He felt Jim do the same, not moving but moving his mind, his soul, thrusting it into darkness to hide from the little drama above. Come on, Junior, a woman's voice said. The boy was pulled up and away, too late, for the dwarf was looking down. And in his eyes were the lost bits and fitful pieces of a man named Fury, who had sold lightning rods how many days and how many years ago in the long, the easy, the safe and wondrous time before this fright was born. Oh, Mr. Fury, thought Will. What have they done to you? Threw you under a pile driver, squashed you in a steel press, squeezed the tears and screams out of you, trapped you in a jack-in-the-box all pressed down until there's nothing left of you, Mr. Fury? Nothing left but this dwarf. And the dwarf's face was less human, more machine now, in fact, a camera. The shuddering eyes flexed sightless, opening upon darkness. Tick, two lenses expanded, contracted with liquid swiftness, a picture or snap of the grill. A snap also of what lay beneath. Is he staring at the metal? Thought Will, or the spaces between the metal. For a long moment the ruined, squashed clay doll dwarf squatted while standing tall. His flash camera eyes were bulbed wide, perhaps still taking pictures, while Jim were not seen really at all. Only their shape, their color and size were borrowed by these dwarf camera eyes. They were clapped away in the box Brownie's skull. Later, how much later, the picture would be developed by the wild, the tiny, the forgetful, the wandering and lost lightning rod mind. What lay under the grill would then be really seen. And after that, revelation, revenge, destruction, clickety-snap, tick. Children ran laughing by. The dwarf child, drawn by their running joy, was swept along with them. Madly he skipped off, remembering himself, and then went looking for something, he knew not what. The cloudy sun poured light through all the sky. The two boys boxed in light-spotted pit, hissed their breaths softly out through gritted teeth. Jim squeezed Will's hand tight. Both waited for more eyes to stride along and take the steel grill. The blue, red, green tattooed eyes, all five of them, fell away from the countertop. Charles Holloway, sipping his third coffee, turned slightly on the revolving stool. The illustrated man was watching him. Charles Holloway nodded. The illustrated man did not nod or blink, but stared until the janitor wanted to turn away, but did not, and simply gazed as calmly as possible at the impertinent intruder. What'll it be? asked the cafe proprietor. Nothing. Mr. Dark watched Will's father. I'm looking for two boys. Who isn't? Charles Holloway rose. paid, walked off. Thanks, Ned. In passing, he saw the man with the tattoo hold his hands out, palms up toward Ned. Boys, said Ned. How old? The door slammed. Mr. Dark watched Charles Holloway walk off outside the window. Ned talked. But the illustrated man did not hear. Outside, Will's father moved toward the library, stopped, moved toward the courthouse, stopped, waited for some better sense to direct him, felt his pocket mist his smokes, and turned toward the United Cigar Store. Jim looked up, saw familiar feet, pale face, salt and pepper hair. Will, your dad, call to him. He'll help us. Will could not speak. I'll call to him. Will hit Jim's arm, shook his head violently. No, why not? Mouthed Jim. Because, said Will's lips. Because, he gazed up. Dad looked even smaller up there than he had last night. Seen from the side of the house, it would be like calling to one more boy passing. They didn't need one more boy. They needed a general. No, a major general. He tried to see Dad's face at the cigar counter window and discover whether it looked really older, firmer, stronger than it did last night, washed with all the milk colors of the moon, but all he saw was Dad's fingers twitching nervously and his mouth working, as if he didn't dare ask his needs for Mr. Tetley. One, that is, 1.25-cent cigar. My God, said Mr. Tetley above, the man's rich. Charles Holloway took his time removing the cellophane, waiting for some hint, some move on the part of the universe to show him where he was going. Why he had come back this way for a cigar he did not really want. He thought he heard himself called twice. Glanced swiftly at the crowds, saw clowns passing with handbills, and lit the cigar he did not want from the eternal blue gas flame that burned in a small silver jet pipe on the counter, and puffing smoke dropped the cigar band with his free hand, saw the band bounce on the metal grill and vanish, his eyes following it farther down to where it lit at the feet of Will Holloway, his son. Charles Holloway choked on cigar smoke. Two shadows there, yes, and the eyes, terror gazing up out of the dark well under the street. He almost bent to seize the grate, yelling. Instead, incredulous, he only blurted softly, with the crowd around and the weather clearing. Jim, Will, what the H is going on? At which moment, 100 feet away, the illustrated man came out of Ned's night spot. Mr. Holloway, said Jim. Come up out of there, said Charles Holloway. The illustrated man, a crowd among crowds, pivoted slowly, then walked toward the cigar store. Dad, we can't. Don't look down at us down here. The illustrated man was some 80 feet away. Boys, said Charles Holloway. The police. Mr. Holloway, said Jim hoarsely. We're dead if you don't look up. The illustrated man, if he... The what? Asked Mr. Holloway. The man with the tattoos. From the cafe counter, 5 electric blue inked eyes fixed Mr. Holloway's memory. Dad, look over at the courthouse clock while we tell you what happened. Mr. Holloway straightened up. The illustrated man arrived. He stood studying Charles Holloway. Sir, said the illustrated man. 11:15. Charles Holloway judged the courthouse clock, adjusted his wristwatch, cigar in mouth. 1 minute slow. Sir, said the illustrated man. Will held Jim. Jim held Will fast in the gum wrapper, tobacco-littered pit as horseshoes rocked, shuffled, tilted above. Sir, said the man named Dark, probing Charles Holloway's face for the bones there to compare it to the other bones and other half-similar people. The Cougar Dark combined shows have picked 2 local boys, 2, to be our special guests during our celebratory visit. Well, Will's father tried not to glance at the sidewalk. These 2 boys... Will watched the tooth-sharp shoe-nails of the illustrated man flash sparkling the grill. These boys will ride all the rides, see each show, shake hands with every performer, go home with magic kits, baseball bats. Who, interrupted Mr. Holloway, are these lucky boys? 2 selected from photos snapped at our midways yesterday. Identify them, sir, and you will share their fortune. There are the boys. He sees us down here, thought Will. Oh, God, the illustrated man thrust out his hands. Will's father lurched. Tattooed in bright blue ink, Will's face gazed up at him from the palm of the right hand. Ink sewn to the left palm, Jim's face was indelible and natural as life. You know them? The illustrated man saw Mr. Holloway's throat clench, his eyelids squinch, his bones struck vibrant as from a sledgehammer blow. Their names? Dad, careful, Will thought. I don't, said Will's father. You know them. The illustrated man's hands shook, held out to view, asking for the gifts of names, making Jim's face on the flesh, Will's face on the flesh, Jim's face hidden beneath the street. Will's face hidden beneath the street, tremble, writhe, pinch. Sir, you wouldn't want them to lose out. No, but, Mr. Dark loomed closer, magnificent in his picture gallery flesh, his eyes, the eyes of all his beasts and hapless creatures, cutting through his shirt, coat, trousers, fastening the old man tight, biting him with fire, fixing him with 1,000-fold attentions. Mr. Dark shoved his 2 palms near, but, Mr. Holloway, needing something to excruciate, bit his cigar. I thought for a moment. Thought what? Grand delight for Mr. Dark. One of them looked like who? Too eager, thought Will. You see that, Dad, don't you? Mister, said Will's father. Why are you so jumpy about two boys? Jumpy? Mr. Dark's smile melted like cotton candy. Jim scooshed himself down into a dwarf. Will crammed himself down into a midget, both looking up, waiting. Sir, said Mr. Dark, is my enthusiasm that to you? Jumpy? Will's father noted the muscles cord along his arms, roping and unroping themselves with a writhe like the puff adders and sidewinders doubtless inked with venomous there. One of those pictures, drawled Mr. Holloway, looks like Milton Blomquist. Mr. Dark clenched a fist. A blinding ache struck Jim's head. The other, Will's father was almost bland, looks like Avery Johnson. Oh, Dad, thought Will, you're great. The illustrated man clenched his other fist. Will, his head in a vice, almost screamed. Both boys, finished Mr. Holloway, moved to Milwaukee some weeks ago. You, said Mr. Dark, coldly, lie. Will's father was truly shocked. Me, and spoil the prize winner's fun? Fact is, said Mr. Dark, we found the names of the boys 10 minutes ago, just want to double-check. So, said Will's father, disbelieving. Jim, said Mr. Dark. Will. Jim writhed in the dark. Will sank his head deep in his shoulder blades, eyes tight. Will's father's face was a pond into which the two dark stone names sank without a ripple. First names, Jim, Will, lots of Jims and Wills, couple hundred, town like this. Will crouched and squirming, thought, who told? Miss Foley? But she was gone, her house empty and full of rain and shadows, only one other person. The little girl who looked like Miss Foley weeping under the tree, the little girl who frightened us so bad, he wondered. In the last half hour the parade going by found her and her crying for hours, afraid and ready to do anything, say anything, if only with music, horses plunging, world racing, they would grow her old again, grow her around again, lift her, shut up her crying, stop up the awful thing and make her as she was. Did the carnival promise lie to her when they found her under the tree and ran her off? The little girl crying but not telling all because Jim, Will, said Will's father. First names, what about the last? Mr. Dark did not know the last names. His universe of monsters sweated phosphorus on his side, soured his armpits, reeked, slammed between his iron-sinewed legs. Now, said Will's father, with strange and to him almost delightful because new calm, I think you're lying. You don't know the last names. Now why should you, a carnival stranger, lie to me here on the street in some town on the backside of nowhere? The illustrated man clenched his two calligraphic fists very hard. Will's father, his face pale, considered these mean, constricted fingers, knuckles, digging nails, inside which two boys' faces, crushed hard in a dark vice, tight, very tight, imprisoned flesh, were kept in fury. Two shadows below thrashed in agony. The illustrated man erased his face to serenity. But a bright drop fell from his right fist, a bright drop fell from his left fist. The drops vanished through the steel sidewalk grill. Will gasped. Wetness had struck his face. He clapped his hand to it, then looked at his palm. The wetness had hit his cheek, was bright red. He glanced from it to Jim, who lay still now also, for the scarification, real or imagined, seemed over, and both flicked their eyes up to where the illustrated man's shoes flint sparked the grill, grinding steel on steel. Will's father saw the blood ooze from the clenched fists, but forced himself to look only at the illustrated man's face as he said, Sorry I can't be more help. Beyond the illustrated man, rounding the corner, hands weaving the air, dressed the harlequin gypsy colors, face waxen, eyes hid behind plum-dark glasses, the fortune-teller, the dust witch, came mumbling. A moment later, looking up, Will saw her. Not dead, he thought, carried off, bruised, fallen, yes, but now back. And mad, Lord, yes, mad, looking especially for me. Will's father saw her. His blood slowed, by instinct alone, to a pudding in his chest. The crowd opened happily, laughing and commenting on her bright, if tattered, costume, trying to remember what she rhymed, so as to tell it later. She moved, fingers feeling the town as if it were an immensely complicated and lush tapestry, and she sang, Tell you your husbands, tell you your wives, tell you your fortunes, tell you your lives. See me, I know, see me at the show. Tell me the color of his eyes, tell you the color of her lies, tell you the color of his gold, tell you the color of her soul. Come now, don't go, see me at the show. Children appalled, children impressed, parents delighted, parents in high good humor, and still the gypsy from the dust of living sang. Time walked in her murmuring. She made and broke microscopic webs between her fingers wherein to feel soot fly up, breath fly out. She touched the wings of flies, the souls of invisible bacteria, auspex, mites, mica, snowings of sunlight filtrated with motion, and much more hidden emotion. Will and Jim cracked their bones, cowered down, hearing, blind, yes, blind, but I see what I see where I be, said the witch softly. There's a man with a straw hat in autumn. Hello, and why, there's Mr. Dark, and an old man. He's not that old, cried Will to himself, blinking up at the three, as the witch stopped, her shadow falling moist frog cool on the hidden boys. Old man. Mr. Holloway was jolted as if by a series of cold knives thrust in his stomach. Old man, said the witch. She stopped this. Ah, the hairs on her nostrils bristled. She gaped her mouth to save her air. Ah, the illustrated man quickened. Wait, sighed the gypsy. Her fingernails scraped down an unseen blackboard of air. Will felt himself yip, bark, whimper like an aggravated hound. Slowly her fingers climbed down, feeling the spectrums, weighing the light. In another moment a forefinger might thrust to the sidewalk grill, implying, there. Dad thought Will do something. The illustrated man, gone sweetly patient now that his blind but immensely aware dust lady was here, watched her with love. Now the witch fingers itched. Now said Will's father loud. The witch flinched. Now this is a fine cigar, yelled Will's father, turning with great pomp back to the counter. Quiet, said the illustrated man. The boys looked up. Now. The witch sniffed the wind. Got to light again. Mr. Holloway stuck the cigar in the eternal blue flame. Silence, suggested Mr. Dark. Ever smoke yourself? Asked Dad. The witch, from the concussion of his fire fiercely erupted in overly jovial words, dropped one wounded hand to her side, wiped sweat from it as one wipes an antenna for better reception, and drifted it up again. Her nostrils flared with wind. Ah, said Will's father, blew a dense cloud of cigar smoke. It made a fine thick cumulus surrounding the woman. Gosh, she choked. Fool, the illustrated man barked, but whether at the man or woman the boys below could not tell. Here, let's buy you one. Mr. Holloway blew more smoke, handing Mr. Dark a cigar. The witch exploded his sneeze, recoiled, staggered away. The illustrated man snatched Tad's arm, saw that he had gone too far, let go, and could only follow his gypsy woman off in some clumsy and totally unexpected defeat. But then, in going, he heard Will's father say, A fine day to you, sir. No, Dad, thought Will. The illustrated man came back. Your name, sir? He asked directly. Don't tell him, thought Will. Will's father debated a moment, took the cigar from his mouth, tapped ash, and said quietly, Holloway, work in the library. Drop by sometime. You can be sure, Mr. Holloway, I will. The witch was waiting near the corner. Mr. Holloway wetted his forefinger, toasted the wind, and sent a cumulus her way. She flailed back, gone. The illustrated man went rigid, spun about, strode off. The ink portraits of Jim and Will crushed hard iron tight in his fists. Silence. It was so quiet under the grill, Mr. Holloway thought the two boys had died of fright. And Will, below, gazing up, eyes wet, mouth wide, thought, Oh my gosh, why didn't I see it before? Dad's tall, Dad's very tall indeed. Still, Charles Holloway did not look down at the grill, but only at the small comets of splashed red color left on the sidewalk, trailed around the corner, dropped off from the clenched hands of the vanished Mr. Dark. He was also gazing with surprise at himself, accepting the surprise, the new purpose which was half despair, half serenity now that the incredible deed was done. Let no one ask why he had given his true name. Even he could not say and give its real weight. Now he could only read the numerals on the courthouse clock and speak to it while the boys below listened. Oh, Jim, Will, something is going on. Can you hide, keep out from under the rest of the day? We have got to have time. With things like this, where do you begin? No law's been broken, not on the books anyway, but I feel dead and buried a month. My flesh ripples. Hide, Jim. Will, hide. I'll tell your mothers you've got jobs at the carnival. Good excuse for you not coming home. Stay hid until dark, then come to the library at 7. Meantime, I'll check police records on carnivals, newspaper files at the library, books, old folios, anything that might fit. God willing, by the time you show up after dark, I'll have a plan. Walk easy until then. Bless you, Jim. Bless you, Will. The small father, who was very tall now, walked slowly away. His cigar, unnoticed, fell from his hand, dropped in a spark shower through the grate. It lay in the square pit, glowing its single fiery pink eye at Jim and Will, who looked back and at last snatched a blind and put it out. 36. The dwarf, bearing his demented and wildly lighted eyes, made his way south on Main Street. Stopping suddenly, he developed a film strip in his head, scanned it, bleated, and blundered back through the forest of legs, reached for and pulled the illustrated man down where a whisper was as good as a shout. Mr. Dark listened, then fled, leaving the dwarf far behind. Reaching the cigar store Indian, the illustrated man sank to his knees, clutching the steel lattice grill. He peered down in the pit. Below lay yellow newspapers, wilted candy wrappers, burnt cigars, and gum. Mr. Dark's cry was a muffled fury. Lose something? Mr. Tetley blinked over his counter. The illustrated man clenched the grate, nodding once. I cleaned under the grate once a month for the money, said Mr. Tetley. How much you lose? Dime? Quarter? Half a dollar? Bing. The illustrated man glared up. In the cash register window, a small fire-red sign jumped high. No sale. 37. The town clock struck 7. The echoes of the great chime wandered into the unlit halls of the library. An autumn leaf very crisp fell somewhere in the dark, but it was only the page of a book turning. Off in the catacombs, bent to a table under a grass-green shaded lamp, lips pursed, eyes narrowed, sat Charles Holloway, his hands trembling, the pages lifting, rearranging the books. Now and then he hurried off to peer into the autumn night, watchful of the streets. Then again he came back to paper-clip pages, to insert papers, to scribble out quotations, whispering to himself. His voice brought forth quick echoes from the library vaults. "Look here, here," said the night passages. "This picture, picture," said the halls. "And this, this." The dust settled. It had been the longest day of all days he could remember in his life. He had mingled with strange and not so strange crowds. He had searched after searchers in the wake of the wide scattering parade. He had resisted telling Jim's mother, Will's mother, more than they needed to know for a happy Sunday, and meantime crossed shadows with Dwarf, traded nods with Pinhead and Fire Eater, kept free of shadowed alleys, and controlled his panic when, doubling back, he saw the basement pit empty under the cigar store grill, and knew that the boys were at hide-and-seek somewhere nearby, or somewhere, praise God, very far away. Then in the crowds he moved to the carnival ground, stayed out of tents, stayed free of rides, observed, watched the sun go down, and just at twilight surveyed the cold glass waters of the mirror maze, and saw just enough on the shore to pull him back before he drowned. Wet all over, cold to the bone before night caught him, he let the crowd protest, warm, and bear him away up into town to the library and the most important books, which he arranged in a great literary clock on the table, like someone learning to tell a new time. So he paced around and round the huge clock, squinting at the yellowed pages as if they were moth wings pinned dead to the wood. Here lay a portrait of the Prince of Darkness, next to a series of fantastic sketches of the temptations of St. Anthony, next to some etchings of the Bizzarri by Giovan Battista Raccelli, depicting a set of curious toys, human-like robots, engaged in various alchemical rites. At 5 minutes to 12 stood a copy of Dr. Faustus. At 2 lay an occult iconography. At 6, under Mr. Holloway's trailed fingers now, a history of circuses, carnivals, shadow shows, puppet menageries, inhabited by mountebanks, minstrels, stilt-walking sorcerers, and their fantoccini. More, a manual for the air kingdoms, things that fly down history. At 9 sharp, by demons possessed, lying atop Egyptian philters, lying atop the torments of the damned, which in turn crushed flat the spells of mirrors. Barry laid up the literary clock, one named Locomotives and Trains, the mystery of sleep between midnight and dawn, the witch's Sabbath, and Pacts with Demons, and it was all laid out. He could see the face. But there were no hands on this clock. He could not tell what hour of the night of life it was for himself, the boys, or the unknowing town. For in sum, what had he to go by? At 3 o'clock in the morning arrival, a grotesque-looking glass maze, a Sunday parade, a tall man with a swarm of electric blue pictures itching on his sweaty hide, a few drops of blood falling down to the pavement grill, 2 frightened boys staring up out of the earth, and himself, alone in a mausoleum quiet, nudging the puzzle together. What was there about the boys that made him believe the simplest word they whispered up through the grill? Fear itself was proof here, and he had seen enough fear in his life to know it, like the smell from a butcher's shop in summer twilight. What was there about the Illustrated Carnival's owners' silences that spoke thousands of violent, corrupt, and crippling words? What was there in the old man he had seen through a tent flap late that afternoon, seated in a chair with the words Mr. Electrico bannered over him, power ebbing, webbing, and crawling on his flesh like green lizards? All of it. All of it. And now these books, this. He touched physiognomy, the secrets of the individual's character as found in his face, where Jim and Will then featured all angelic, pure, half-innocent, peering up through the sidewalk and marching terror. Did the boys represent the ideal for your woman, man, or child of excellent bearing, color, balance, and summer disposition? Conversely, Charles Holloway turned a page. Did these scurrying freaks the illustrated marvel bear the foreheads of the irascible, the cruel, the covetous, the mouths of the lewd and untruthful, the teeth of the crafty, the unstable, the audacious, the vainglorious, and your murderous beast? No. The book slipped shut. If faces were judged, the freaks were no worse than the many that he'd seen slipping for the library late nights in his long career. There was only one thing sure. The 2 lines of Shakespeare said it. He should write them in the middle of the clock of books to fix their heart of this apprehension. By the pricking of my thumbs, something wicked this way comes, so vague yet so immense. He did not want to live with it, yet he knew that during this night, unless he lived with it very well, he might have to live with it all the rest of his life. At the window he looked out and thought, Jim, Will, are you coming? Will you get here? Waiting, his flesh took paleness from his bones.